Alright, so, the assignment for this week is diffuse textures, which I didn't go over in class. So basically, the idea behind this is that you should theoretically have your hero models done by now. You are going to want to go in and do all of the diffuse textures for your object. So diffuse textures are basically just going to be like anything that you put into like the color or albedo channel. So anything like logos, stickers, like any of that stuff should be in there. You don't need anything for roughness or bump maps. Um, if it, and I have a note. It might be a good idea. It's like if it's hard to see what's going on in your textures and you just want to like add in some quick stuff, that's fine. But the reason that I sort of want you guys to do the diffuse textures, particularly if you're working in Photoshop, if you're doing something with Substance Painter or similar, which is completely fine, and you're also welcome to sort of do more textures. Like it's easier to do more texturing and stuff. Um, in something like Substance, you just do it all at once. But if you're doing something in Photoshop specifically, once you have those diffuse textures in, it's very easy to go through and just say, okay, here's my texture, like let me convert that into a different roughness, or let me convert that into a bump. So if you can get all that nailed in, it should be relatively easy to sort of, like I said, convert that, and then sort of like modify stuff as needed, or like as a unit. It'll give you more time to sort of finish refining your texture. Um, Things to sort of focus on are like avoiding obvious seams in your textures. So if there's like a fingerprint that's on the middle of a UV seam and you just see a harsh line cutting off the fingerprint, like definitely avoid stuff like that. Obvious tiling in textures, which I feel like is less noticeable on stuff like your hero objects, but every once in a while, like if you look at metal texture or something like this, and again, if you're using something from textures.com, you shouldn't have this issue for the most part. But something like this would be a really bad example of a texture for tiling because it has the sort of highlight on the top and the shadow on the bottom, so that when you tile this, you're going to get like a grid of like stripy highlights and shadows, which is going to look really strange. Same thing for this, and pretty much all of these. These are all not meant to be tiled like that. Also look at eliminating sort of warping and stretching and pulling and things like that. And part of that is just making sure that there's enough edge loops in something. So if you notice that there's significant stretching or pulling, like at a given corner, maybe, or if you have a long cylinder and the edges are getting really stretched, you probably just need another edge loop or two to sort of like hold those textures in place. Resolution issues goes without saying, hopefully at this point. Um, and then just sort of keep refining the day and night lighting. Again, this is gonna depend a lot. Like I'm not grading that super crazily, but it's mostly just sort of like keep playing around with it, keep trying to fix issues if there are any. If you feel like you need more lighting for either, just keep adding those in. But I'm not, like I said, not grading the lighting super harshly. It's just sort of like, cool, I can give you feedback if there's lighting, basically. Um, and this is pretty much what I said before, so that's basically that. For what to submit, one render of each object with your textures applied. So that's pretty much just going to be your diffuse texture. I don't care if you break this up into a single texture or two textures for your whole object. If you want to have a separate texture for, or like a separate shader, I should say, for like every piece of your 12-piece object. I don't recommend doing that. It's really annoying to deal with. Also, usually not how things are done in industry. Like normally, if you have a telescope, you'll just have all the textures that telescope on. Um, but however you want to do stuff is fine. However you set up your UV is fine. Like I said last week, I'm not really going to check that unless it looks like there's explicit issues with it, or if you ask me to. Um, so just the one render of the object with your stuff on it. The one render in your scene with day and night lighting. Your reference PDF thingy. You can just keep reusing the same ones, it's fine. And then a zip of all of the texture files used and corresponding Maya files. If you want to put that in project folder format, that's fine. I mostly just want to see your texture files that you have. And that's pretty much this. Double check. I forget how much this is worth. I can't tell if the 3 points is accurate or not. That is accurate. It is worth 3 points, which is more or less a point per model. And that is pretty much this assignment. So just for each of your objects, again, like one render for object 1, one render for object 2, one render for object 3, and then you'll have basically two day and night renders for each of your objects, so 6 day and night renders. And that's pretty much that. So for those of you left, are there any questions on that? I will end this random OBS recording and put